Coming up on Network Africa.
Thabane. Plus, dozens of people injured in grenade attack on a pro-Abiy Ahmed rally in Ethiopia. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. From South Sudan, where Riek Machar has been sworn in as vice president, to Togo, where the people voted in the country's presidential elections, and then to Algeria, where many marked 1 year since anti-government protests began. We begin the program with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Saturday, former rebel leader Riek Machar was sworn in as South Sudan's first vice president after he agreed to form a unity government with his longtime rival President Salva Kiir, a move that could end years of fighting in the country. Dressed in a black suit with a red tie, Machar stood next to his wife Angelina Teny and took the oath of office in front of Kiir. Chief Justice Chan Rich Madut administered the oath. Afterwards, Machar shook Kiir's hand, smiled, and hugged his old adversary, officially becoming part of the new government.
I have forgiven my brother, Dr. Riek Machar, and first vice president of the Republic of South Sudan. And I also ask for his forgiveness. I'm inviting all the people of South Sudan to forgive one another.
Kiir and Machar had repeatedly pushed back deadlines to form a government of national unity, a core component of a peace accord signed in 2018. The civil war killed 400,000 people and triggered Africa's biggest refugee crisis since the 1994 Rwandan genocide. Still on Saturday, citizens in Togo voted as polling stations opened for a presidential election expected to extend serving President Faure Gnassingbé's 15-year-old hold on power. There are long queues outside some stations in Lomé, which President Gnassingbé has tried to turn into a regional transport and finance hub. After voting, the president said he was pleased with the turnout.
Across the whole country, there have been a few minor incidents, but globally things are going well. There was a good number of voters and it is taking place calmly. I'm fairly confident.
Gnassingbé faced 6 rivals from a divided and historically weak opposition, including Jean-Pierre Fabre, a former journalist and human rights campaigner who came second in elections in 2010 and 2015. The election follows a constitutional revamp last year that limits presidents to 2 5-year terms. The reform was not retroactive, however, meaning the president could be in power for another decade. Tens of thousands of Algerians continued their demonstrations on Saturday to mark the first anniversary of protests that ousted President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, demanding the removal of allies of the former leader who are still in power and more steps towards democracy. The protests broke out on February 22, 2019, against Bouteflika's plan to seek a 5th term in office and demand political reform and the prosecution of people involved in corruption. Bouteflika resigned in April last year, but protests have still been held every week. 2 former prime ministers, several ex-ministers, and prominent businessmen have been detained in anti-graft investigations since Bouteflika's resignation, but demonstrators are now seeking the removal of Bouteflika allies to remain in power and are calling for progress towards democracy and better living standards.
To our main stories now, at least 3 Togolese opposition candidates in the presidential election have said the vote was marred by fraud. Preliminary results from the presidential election in Togo indicate that incumbent for Nasimbe will secure a 4th term in power. The Electoral Commission cited provisional results as showing that Mr. Nasimbe had received 72% of the vote, compared with about 18% for the best-placed opposition candidate, Abeyome Kojo. This 4th term extends Mr. Ford's 15-year rule and a family dynasty that began when his father took power in a 1967 coup.
Jubilation in President Faure Yasingbe's camp as supporters celebrate their leader's re-election in a landslide victory. According to preliminary results from the Electoral Commission on Monday, he won with 72% of the vote, extending his 15-year rule and a family dynasty that began when his father took power in the 1967 coup.
Number 1,
Nasingbe is Ozimna 4 with 1,938,889, which represents 2.36%. In second place, we find Mr. Kojo Agbeyome Gabriel with 492,336 votes. In terms of percentage, that is 18.27%.
au second plan, au second rang.
Yasingbe told his supporters at party headquarters that candidates could always contest the result, but that victory was his.
To my adversaries who lost, I would like to say that it is the game of democracy. The Togolese people have expressed themselves. We must respect their choice. Stop improvising, stop inventing imaginary numbers, and let us submit ourselves to the judgment of the people of Togo. The people have decided. We have come out victorious. It is always possible to contest, but whatever happens, victory is ours.
However, the final results are expected to be announced by the Supreme Court in the coming days. If confirmed, the result gives Yasingbe 5 more years in power, a blow for opposition protesters who have taken to the streets in recent years, calling for him to step down.
Lawyers for Lesotho's Prime Minister have told a court that he cannot be charged over the murder of his estranged wife because his position makes him immune from persecution. Prime Minister Thomas Thabane, then wife Lipolelo Thabane, was shot dead in 2017. The case has now been referred to the High Court. His current wife has already been charged with the murder. Mr. Thabane would be the first African leader to be charged with domestic murder while in office. He appeared in court in the capital after returning from South Africa, where his aides said he had gone for medical treatment.
It is of common cause that the person sought to be joined as accused number 2 is a sitting Prime Minister of His Majesty's government. In a nutshell, the question that the defense seeks to refer to the High Court, sitting as a constitutional court, is whether a sitting Prime Minister can be criminally charged. I must admit at the outset that this is indeed a novel case in our country, and whose determination we shall eagerly anticipate. Having had submissions from both sides, and on authority of the decision of the Court of Appeal in the case of Motobi and Anada versus the Crown, to which this court was referred, I find that there is indeed a substantial question of law raised. The application for referral of the matter to the High Court is granted as prayed. I now hand down the ruling. Court is adjourned.
Over in Ethiopia, at least 29 people have been injured in an attack at a political rally in support of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. According to a regional police head, the Prime Minister himself was not there. Police say 6 suspects have been arrested following the grenade attack on the rally in Ambo town. Political tension is high as Ethiopia gears up for elections in August. Violence arising from ethnic differences is threatening to undermine reforms initiated by the Prime Minister. To diplomatic relations, Somaliland's president has turned down a request by Somalia's president to visit the breakaway state along with Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. That's according to reports from the East African newspaper. The proposed visit followed mediation effort by Mr. Abiy to thaw relations between Somalia and Somaliland. Since Somalia's civil war and the collapse of government in 1991, Somaliland has been a self-declared independent state and has its own government. However, it's not officially recognized by the United Nations, African Union, or any country. Over the weekend, South Sudan swore in Vice President Riek Machar, and at that ceremony, President Salva Kiir expressed optimism for the future of the country. However, some analysts warn that the country still faces huge challenges achieving a durable peace, and rights groups are calling for steps to improve human rights in the country. According to senior analyst at International Crisis Group, Alan Boswell, it might be very difficult to pull South Sudan out of the civil war, but at least the ceasefire should be preserved.
It might be very difficult to pull South Sudan out of the civil war if they treat this in-between period as just a time to politically campaign against each other as political rivals. So the question is, are they willing to be political partners for at least a while, or are they going to be political rivals only moving forward? I think if they're only political rivals, which there's a pretty good chance they continue to act mainly as political rivals. But if that's the case, I mean, hopefully we can at least preserve the ceasefire, but it'll be hard to see South Sudan really moving forward in a way that I think a lot of South Sudanese would feel quite comfortable for.
And back here in Nigeria, the proliferation of information on various social media platforms has become a cause of worry to some parents who believe its effects may become unbearable to youth development. That explains why the police in Kano organized a workshop for young people who are social media savvy with a view to creating awareness on the dangers of the new media. Our correspondent Nanchin Vincent reports.
Many young men and women today have the world of information at their fingertips and can use mobile phones to reach as many people in hundreds, thousands of kilometers away. However, adults struggle to stay safe with social media, but it is not the case with these young ones. Since it is an information age, they tell what exactly they do on social media.
I mostly use my phone for WhatsApp. That's it. I don't do Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I don't do Facebook very well.
To chat and find some information and to review some information through my Facebook.
Chat, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp.
Some narrate their experiences with the use of social media and how it has impacted their lives.
I had a very bad experience with one who was selling kiddies' wares on Instagram, and she claimed that she would import and then send it down to the person wherever you are, anywhere all over the state. So she insisted that you have to make payments first, which I did. I made the complete payment even for the way bill, but then she kept postponing it.
Someone decided to just post my picture and caption it that, hey, this girl, this so-so lady, she's 35 now and she's begging any young, handsome guy out there that she's searching for a husband. So, and they even put a number that you can contact me and so on. That affects me really, really bad.
Fake news remains a major challenge, although the federal government is putting in place measures to curtail it.
Somebody created a website and launched it that day, and he now spread the information that Mr. President is traveling to the UK for 20 days. So the presidency has to now come out and debunk that rumor, because so those are some of the challenges that we normally used to have.
We feel leaving them unorganized, it will not be very much good for the peace and security of this country. We therefore decided to call all of them, partner with the MPP to ensure that these social media activists are trained to know what is expected of them, what they need to do in order to promote peace in this country, and what they need to know about the rights of every individual and even corporate bodies.
Digitization is here to stay, and these young people need to be guided. Although the effects of social media can be positive and negative, the Nigerian police force remains optimistic that the nation's youths will adopt its positive side to transform the nation. Nanchin Vincent, Channels Television News.
Still to come on the program. Teenage filmmaker and girl education advocate Zuriel Oduole visits schools in South Africa to advocate education for girls in Africa. That's in a moment. Stay with us.